first edition of my Hearts of Iron 3 walkthrough. This is a pretty complicated game, and I've watched some of the Let's Plays out there, but I figured I'd make one for myself. This is a World War II grand strategy game, so it's not your standard RTS. It's actually quite complex, and it's basically every Risk Junkie's wet dream. This is the opening screen. You have all these different scenarios you can pick. You have different difficulty settings and other things. We're going to leave everything on player control so that I can walk through these sorts of things. And you have some suggested nations to play, but you can play as any of these 200 plus nations that you might see around the map. I'm going to go ahead and pick the Soviet Union. It's a good nation for a walkthrough because it's massive. And it's quite powerful, and you tend to do just about everything that you would normally do in any other country. So it's just good practice for different situations and things. And I happen to think they're one of the more interesting countries in this period. And we're going to go Road to War, so that'll start us in 1936. And with some movie making magic, we've loaded the game. So it's pretty massive and somewhat disorienting. Down here you can make the map a little different, so we'll turn political map mode on so I can tell which country is mine. Obviously things look pretty big, but as you zoom in, you'll see that the provinces you have to deal with are very, very small, and there are a lot of them. That's part of the reason why this game is so intimidating. But we'll start off with some general walkie-through type things. The first one is this whole big long bar up here, and we're going to try to make this as interesting as possible. These first four here are all vital resources for your economy. So if we're playing an old RTS style game, imagine that it's your ore in Red Alert, or supplies in Dawn of War, or minerals and gas. So you have energy and metal, which are basically two sides of the same coin. Energy represents things like coal or fuel oil and etc. Your factories use that up to make things. The same goes for metal. Rare materials are also used up in industrial processes and represent things like especially rare minerals, rubber, etc. And then you have oil, which is produced by your country or traded for and then converted into fuel, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Here, this bar is your IC bar there at the top, and that's your industrial capacity, which is how much you can build. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. Then you have supplies, which are what your troops use up to eat and move around. Fuel is for your automotive units, airplanes, etc. Money, which you use on the international market to buy things. Your manpower, which represents the amount of citizens that you have to fight a war with that are at service age. Then you've got these three other statistics, which are all modified by a technology, basically, that we'll get into. It's a slider. We'll talk about that later as well. You've got your diplomacy pool, which shows how many diplomats you have to send all around the world. Spies, how many spies you've got to send all around the world. Your officer ratio, which shows how many officers per regular soldiers you have. The higher the better, obviously. Your troops will fight better. If you have, and then this is dissent and national unity. Dissent represents how many people are angrily opposing your government. If dissent gets too high, you'll be overthrown, and any amount of dissent will affect the functioning of your economy. Because people aren't working, they're out in the streets protesting. National unity shows generally how united your country is as a whole. Right now, the Soviet Union is not particularly united. In fact, they're rather divided. Then we have all these different tabs here to look at, and we'll talk about those in just a sec, because right here is your bestest friend. This is a timer, and the game runs in sequences of minutes, hours, days, and years. And you can pause by hitting the space bar, which is pretty much imperative for for any hope of playing this game. because there's just so much going on. Uh, but we'll go through the tabs now, and we'll make the changes that I would typically make in a game. So the first thing I like to do is to automate trade, because you can see you've got all the nations in the world that you could potentially trade with. And if you click on the particular resource, you'll see if they have it or if they need it. And obviously, you can trade out for that if you like. There are benefits to trading in that the countries that you trade with will like you more slowly over time. How much they like you is this triangle right here, because everyone gravitates towards a side, either the communists, the democratic allies, or the fascists or Nazis in the three corners. And you can see most of the countries in the world are sort of between the two. Here you have the victory point counter, and that shows who has the most valuable stuff in the world. Right now, the Allies are winning. Then you have a window you can click on each country and see their relationship with you and different things. The important one is neutrality, because that tells you whether or not you can declare war on them. And you obviously have all these different options that you can ask for from a country that are basically pretty straightforward. Influencing a nation, you spend money and they like you more as a result. We also have these, which none of them are available yet, and they're decisions you can make when the time is right. If you mouse over the little thing, it'll tell you what you need to have happening for the decision to become available. That's basically all I do with the trade screen to start, because this is a short video. Typically what I'll like to do at the start is to buy as many supplies as possible. Here you have the production screen, and this is where you use your IC to produce various things. For example, say you want to build a light tank. That'll take 5.71 IC and so many people out of the manpower pool, and it takes a number of days. So I'll probably make a special video for this one with something more in depth. But for my Soviet Union opening, I like to build a lot of factories to start. And factories, you spend about 5 IC to produce 1 IC. So it's not the most cost-effective thing in the world. But for the Soviets, it's a good choice. You have a strong starting army as far as size goes. So you have a little bit of leeway and playroom. You can also... A unique thing about this game is that you can turn it over to the AI whenever you feel overwhelmed. So you could click here and turn everything over to the AI. You could click here and the AI would deploy your soldiers for you when it comes time to build them. As far as these sliders, it's all your different needs. So IC into upgrades, your troops will get new equipment. IC into reinforcements, you'll get new reinforcements. If you right click on this little slider, it will lock it. So you don't have to see when I move one slider, they all move. That can be pretty irritating and difficult. So, and if you click on the number itself, it'll lock it in place and move it to the number that you want, which is rather nice. So that's what we're going to do right here. I'm not going to upgrade anything, because more than likely the war is quite a ways off. So nothing really to worry about. I've asked for more than enough IC to be built. An important thing that I've read on the Paradox forums is that when you build something, you can do it serially, which means when the first item is built, it'll automatically just start building another, or parallel, where you build multiple things at the same time. That if you do serial production, it's not as efficient as doing one, letting it finish, and then manually selecting for another. Then we have the technology screen, which this one is one that you'll look at a lot. Basically what happens on this screen is you have the largest tech tree that anyone could ever want. It's pretty extreme. Not everything is going to be researched. Obviously, with this many techs, you have to pick and choose, and as a result, you can kind of tailor make your army. Now, for the Soviet Union, there's a particular concern, and we'll actually skip ahead a slide, more or less, to show you what this concern is. And it's basically that the Soviet Union is chock full of spies, and if spies are in your country, bad things are going to happen to you. So, what we want to do to start is invest all of our leadership in espionage, which will produce a spy per day. And we're going to distribute those spies within our own country to fight spies and in other major players who would have reason to hurt us. And since I was just talking about that, we'll go ahead and do that. So you got some legwork that I'll do offline because I want to keep this video under 15 minutes, where you can set the priorities so that when a spy becomes available in the top right, you can send him anywhere you would like. And the priority will map out where the AI sends them. So what I like to do is just reduce the priority on all of these countries, which I'll do offline, so that all the spies get sent to us. And they'll be focused on killing or capturing enemy spies during that time period. And any country that we have spies in, you just change their mission to counter-espionage. And they will begin infiltrating the enemy's spy networks and trying to find them out. Another good slide here is our last one, really, that we're going to look at here is your politics. And this shows you a cabinet and your leader and their benefits that they provide and which party they are from. Your country gets benefits if you're of a single party. Here we've got some people that aren't in the main party, so we're going to take some penalties to our unity because of that. You also have a system of laws that you can enact. Right now we can't enact any new laws, so we're stuck with what we've got. There are requirements for each one, and usually they revolve around national unity, and ours is too low to change anything. When people become available, you can also replace your various cabinet members. Maybe that some have traits that you would prefer. It just depends. A lot of this game is about customization and quick thinking. So whichever you end up tending to like the most. For the start here, really for me, there's nobody that I really like to change out. And some of the bad ministers, like Yagoda, you can't change him out anyways. So you're kind of stuck with him. And with that, I think I will wrap up the first video. So this is just a generalized walkthrough. We'll actually get down to playing the game, and I'll take care of the, reassigning the spy network and tweaking some things that I'll tell you about in the next video. Thanks for watching. Take care.